Ok, legal, tá bom, normal.
Não ter potência para fazer uma ultrapassagem segura não é legal. Mude para um Haval H6, o híbrido que conquistou o Brasil. E tem até 393 cavalos de potência e 77,7 quilos de torque. Haval H6, a linha SUV eletrificada mais completa do país. GWM, Hello Tomorrow. Paz no trânsito começa por você.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
Joining us now is Bobby Chacon, FBI agent for 20 plus years. Bobby, let's get to these serious threats against the Trump nominees. This is frightening. In the last few hours, all of these things coming in. Lee Zeldin is one of them. Also, Pete Hegseth, Elise Stefanik, John Ratcliffe, all of these people that are in major positions are getting these threats. Are they, what do you think? Do you think they're domestic? Do you think they're foreign? How do you check it out?
Well, I mean, personally, I think it's domestic. I mean, but they're probably the way the threat comes in, whether it's emailed, texted, however it's communicated, that's the thread you follow. So probably quickly on that, whatever communication they use to communicate those threats. Some of these might be phone calls because we're hearing about swatting incidents in addition to bomb threats. So these are all very, very serious situations. They're violations of federal law. And, I think this is an effort on behalf of the Democrats and the left to kind of, this is their January 6th. This is their election denial. This is their way of impeding the peaceful transfer of power. And it's a very serious violation. The FBI's on it. The Homeland Security's on it. And hopefully, this prosecutor's office, U.S. Attorney's office are taking it seriously and prosecute these people if they're located.
So you believe maybe it's a domestic, like political. It's frightening if that's the case, wherever the case is. I mean, they haven't even gotten into office yet. This is is this sadly the new normal, an abhorrent new normal?
Well, I mean, look, I hate to say it, but I mean, look, when all of the appointees are the targets of you have to believe political. I mean, what's the thread with they're all Trump? There you go. There's the political, violation. So I think I don't know if it's a new normal because, if the first Trump administration, we saw many people on the left get up and say, go in restaurants and harass people if you see Trump in there. If you see Trump cabinet members shopping with their families, harass them in restaurants, in public places. Don't let them rest. Right? We saw U.S. senators standing up in public telling people to harass these people. So I see this as a continuation of what the left did during Trump's first term, but it's also an escalation of that behavior. They're taking their cues from those senators who said those things during the first Trump administration, and they've guessed it didn't work. So now they've upped their game from harassing people and their families in restaurants to, calling a SWAT team to come to their house.
Well, Bobby,
Rudy Washington here.
Yeah, Rudy. My first instinct was that maybe it was domestic, but it's too sophisticated. I think, the left remind me of little kids having a temper tantrum. But when you start talking about a coordinated attack on appointees, it feels a bit coordinated and sophisticated, which goes back to the Russian hacking group.
So, Rudy, what you're saying is if Iran scares them enough, they won't go after Iran as much as they possibly would.
Yeah, create mischief. I think they're looking...
No, beyond mischief. In other words, if you're a bigger bully and the person that's supposed to go after you is scared because he doesn't want his family killed, then they're not going to do their job.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Well, that would only work. That would only work if the people making the threats identified themselves.
Okay.
Right? I mean, it would have to be if you're saying the Iranians would harass these people so they wouldn't go after the Iranians hard.
I skipped FBI International this week.
But I mean, I think I mean, this is a good point, Rudy. I mean, it could be international, and it could be people just trying to create chaos in our political system. That's a very a good possibility. I think they'll know that fairly quickly when they start tracing these emails or these phone calls. Hopefully,
off air. That's what I said, Bobby. I told them FBI probably already have an idea who it is. They left a footprint somewhere.
Yeah.
Let me ask one
Right,
more. What years were you in the FBI?
1987 to 2014.
Now, let me ask a silly question. At what point did the political people start putting woke people into the FBI?
I would say,
Is
in
Obama
the
time?
2000s. Yeah. I mean, it was probably the early mid 2000s when Robert Mueller put in a system called the 5 up and out rule. So you couldn't be an FBI supervisor for more than 5 years without either putting in for a promotion or stepping down back into the agent rank. So what that did was it created this upward mobility, which all these new young agents wanted to do for the Andrew McCabe's of the world and the Peter Strzoks of the world. They didn't want to stay at the agent level like I did. I stayed in the agent level for 27 years. My entire career, I was a worker at the worker bee level. That's all I ever wanted to do. But I didn't want power. I didn't want to go up the chain. When Robert Mueller put in the 5 up and out rule, that was designed to get rid of the old time supervisors. I had supervisors when I was in my career early in my career, that were on the desk, what we call the desk, for 15 years. They were experienced guys. They were motivating and mentors to young agents. What Mueller did when he's put it the 5 up and out rule, he forced those guys out, and they stepped down to agents or they left. And then you had all these young people kind of putting in their upward mobility, and they wanted to rise up. We call them blue flamers. They had a blue flame out there, but they were rising up, and they just power. They wanted to get into power. Yeah,
Bobby, one more important question. At what point, you left in 2014, at what point, yes. And I made an extreme example today when I was talking to Charlie Gasparino, who wrote the book Go Woke, Go Broke. At what point did they start hiring unqualified pilots to fly 737s? I mean, I'm using an extreme,
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've heard of that happening. But it's much more recently. Airlines, were doing that. They were instituting that, unfortunately. But it was much more recent.
And when did it happen? And when do you think it happened at the FBI?
I would say between the years of, 2003 and 2008, 2010 is when they really had to push. And then, in those, it took a couple of years for those people to rise up the ranks to get into those positions of power when they started being political.
All right. I understand.
Well, keep us posted. And if you hear any more on this case, too, please let us know. Bobby, thank you for what you said, 27 years. Thank you for your great service. Thank you.
Thanks, Rita.